Yeah, we're recording now. So hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Two Peas in a Peggy podcast. I'm Kirsty, and we're here today to discuss another episode of The Walking Dead. Thank you so much to everyone that followed and watched the last episode that I did with Reina. That was the season finale of the latest season 10, episode 16. So thank you very much for following that. We're here today to talk about a particular episode. I know it's one that's close to Reina's heart, and I'll introduce Reina. So welcome back, Reina, to today's podcast. Nice to have you with.
Thank you for having me again.
You are very welcome. And I know this episode in particular is very close to your heart, and obviously we will understand why that is. But just a bit of background that I met Reina in 2018 at Walker Stalker Convention. And I was crewing for Stephen Ogg, who plays Simon in The Walking Dead. And that's where we met. And this episode in particular is very appropriate because it does centre around quite a big thing that happens to Simon. And it does open a bit of a wound for Reina. So apologise in advance for the trauma he's going to have to go through now. But it was really nice to go back and rewatch this episode. And we were talking just before recording the podcast that actually going back and seeing some of the old characters, it was really nice in a way. And you look at it with fresh eyes, don't you? Because we know where we've come, from and where we're up to now. And would things have been any different? So the episode we're doing today is episode 15 of season 8 of The Walking Dead, and it's called Worth. So it's the penultimate episode to All Out War, which is the war against the Saviours. And I will just warn everybody, should have put the disclaimer out there, that there will be spoilers. If there's Walking Dead fans out there and they've not seen this episode as yet, there will be spoilers because obviously we're going to talk about what happens in the episode and other things, I'm sure, as well. Because last time we got on to something else about Negan and Alpha, didn't we?
Yes, we have.
The socks moment. So anything is possible. So thank you once again, Reina, for joining me, and we'll jump right in. So we open the episode and we've got Rick, who's a bit tearful. Now, I will say it was nice to see Rick again back on The Walking Dead, even though it was in the past, but he's my favourite character, so I'm a bit biased. But he's very sad because he's rereading this letter that Carl had left him. And Carl is really trying to get his dad to end this war with Negan, isn't he?
Yeah.
And to sort of restore peace amongst them all. So that was quite a soft way into the episode, I guess. Then we go straight to the sanctuary. And I know you're going to want to get into this, but Simon is there, and Simon is now in charge, isn't he? So do you want to explain a bit about why Simon is now in this place of number one? And in terms of, because Negan's not there, so Simon, as the number 2, has now taken on the role of number 1. He is Negan, as he says to Gregory. They're having a discussion, and Gregory is saying, and I wrote the quote down, "You are the man people look at and say, there is a leader."
Yes.
So that was quite interesting to sort of open our discussions, because he does play the leader role very well, doesn't he?
He does. I think he does an excellent job in that. He is straightforward with what he wants, and he was really clear to Gregory as well. And even when it was considering Gregory's own community, he was straightforward, straight to the point, and he's like, "Gregory, you're done. It's over." And Gregory's like, "Yeah, hell no, it's not over." And started to retaliate, which was obviously not a very good choice of him to do. But yeah, and that was interesting because he was straightforward and he's like, this is how it's going to be. And he made his point.
Yeah, and he's very, I think he's a fantastic actor anyway, and he really consumes that role of being Simon. And you can just see it in his eyes, that determination from the character. And obviously meeting him in person, working with him on, his station, as you like, from the crewing point of view at the convention. And you've obviously met him as well. And knowing the real Stephen,
yeah,
And obviously you've got Simon the character, and it's
It is
just
so different, isn't it? Like
yeah,
I've met him several times. Like I see him a lot, and then looking at the character Simon, and then looking at Stephen in the person, it's the complete opposite of each other, and that is so interesting to see how a man like that can put it down a performance like that. That is just beyond me.
yeah,
Like
he's
that takes so much skill to be so, how can you, yeah, how do you say that, like so evil? Is that what it is, evil?
yeah, he's
And he's selling it so good, and then in the real life he's this vibrant, positive uh human being that you just like want to hold and cuddle, and it
yeah,
is brilliant.
yeah, he's very, as Simon, he's very menacing, isn't he? That's the
Yes.
kind of, yeah, definitely. So in that scene, yeah, Gregory, they're kind of talking, aren't they? And in that moment, um, they have a bit of a scuffle, and Simon kind of like puts him down the floor. It's almost like know your place, Gregory.
Yeah.
Bit of a kind of, I actually rooted for Simon in that moment, because I'm not a fan of Gregory as a character as such. There's some episodes where I can watch him and think, yeah, you're quite interesting. There's obviously something a bit weird about you.
Yeah, there's a story behind you. Like, where do you want to go? What is your idea? What is
Yeah,
and you just, and there's episodes that you just like, okay, can somebody just kill this dude off right now? Because like he's getting annoying.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I
Totally.
rooted for him like that. He body slammed him good.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
He did. Yeah. Um,
and the moment he's like, I was actually gonna kill you, but hey, do you know how to make coffee? I'm like, coffee? Like seriously, just shoot him.
I know. He's had so many chances, hasn't he? At that point. So yeah, and Eugene. So we were talking a bit about this as well before we started the podcast discussion, because Eugene is in the bullet making factory that's kind of there as part of the Saviors, isn't he? And now when we kind of look back on him compared to the latest season, he looks very different, doesn't he? Like fully with his hair and everything, almost like a mad scientist, that kind of
Yes.
look. And Gabriel is there, who's not very well, and he's one of these. He's making the bullets, but he's actually been tampering with them, hasn't he, to make
Yeah.
sure they don't work. And Eugene has cottoned onto this. Now, what I thought was interesting is because when we were talking last time about Gabriel almost being very courageous and sacrificial in that moment of when there was
Yes.
walkers coming in, how much of a contrast from when we first saw him. We know he kept his parishioners out of the church to save himself. He actually reveals in this moment, I don't want to help you, but I do fear death, and considers himself still to be the same scared animal that he was back then. So I just thought that was very timely, because we kind of touched on that last time. But then I thought to myself, well, is Eugene scared underneath it all? Because he's in this almost position of power, because he's in charge of this bullet making factory. He's the one with the brains to do all of that. So he's like in a position where people can look up to him almost in that role. So I wondered if there was still, at that point, I'm kind of looking at him thinking, are you still a bit scared? Is it all a front? Or are you actually wanting to be part of the bad guys in that moment? I know other things transpire as we go further on, but what did you kind of think? Did you get any feeling about Eugene in that
I
moment?
I I think it's a bit of both. Like he's scared to die. He's scared of danger, but obviously, and that moment safest place for him to be as a
Mm.
bullet maker, as Negan calls him, Dr. Smarty Pants. Like
Yeah,
he's got to function, and as long as he does his function the way that Negan wants him to, he's safe, and they will treat him like he's one of them. So basically, I think for him it's like a safety issue. He's like, okay, so if I do this, I'm safe. But it's also an act because he still wants to help his own community, but he can't show off because that would be too obvious. If he would act in a different way, they would still think like, hey, you're still a two sides and kind of thing. And I think it's like he's acting that really out really well. That he's like, okay, right now I'm sanctuary time. I'm safe, but I have to do everything that's necessary to keep myself safe because we all know Negan is a little bit like, okay, if I don't trust you or you do anything against me, then I'll just slam your brains in. So
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of both. Like deep down, he's thinking, how can I help my own community? And at the same time, he's like, I need to be safe. And that's interesting with the bullet because I was thinking, because he said there were faults in that bullet, but were they actually, was that actually a mistaken bullet, or was that a bullet made too perfect? Because he wanted to be all dodgy bullets, wasn't it?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and Gabriel already is having troubles with his vision because
Yeah.
of the infection in his eyes. So
Mm.
what if that bullet was too perfect and he was like feeling it and be like, oh wait, this is a good one, I
Mm.
can't use this, and then kind of had a code or something with Gabriel and be like, hey, you need to do this different because this bullet is too perfect. This one
Yeah.
can actually hurt someone of ours. You need to, mess them up more. Like
Yes.
I'm thinking, like, was that really a point at like trying to dig at Gabriel and be like, oh look, I have power, I can do this, or was it silently a hint like, hey, you're doing your job too well, you need to do it differently?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you kind of peel it back now, it's almost it could be seen as that, couldn't it? Um, Now we know as Eugene heads out of the factory with the guard he's with, there's Daryl and Rosita who take the guard out, and then they capture Eugene, don't they, and take him off. And Eugene's back to that kind of scared, timid look.
He
Even
changed
though
immediately from the badass into the oh,
he did,
like
he did,
immediately.
he did, yeah. And I kind of thought, I mean, again, I know lots of things have kind of happened around this to explain his behavior potentially, but because that was kind of his group, it's almost like you think, oh, they're rescuing me in a way. But it was that fear. But what again was it that fear of, oh, if I get caught and I'm with them, Negan's gonna like, or Simon's gonna
I
finish
think
me.
the fear was because of the arrow that got planted in the god's head before him, and that he doesn't see him yet, but he only saw the arrow coming. He's like, oh shit, we're under attack.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's where the fear came from, and it was kind of like a little bit of a relief to him when he saw Daryl and Rosita, but then, well, obviously they weren't too happy to see him, so
they
that
were.
then that fear got a little bit more real.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Now then we go back to the sanctuary, which is obviously the base of the Saviors, and Dwight is there. Um, Negan suddenly is there because you hear the whistle before you see him. And up until this point, Dwight's there, but he wouldn't have been expecting to see Negan because they thought he died, which is why Simon is obviously now in charge. So they have an interesting exchange, and Negan wants to know if Dwight remembers who he is because obviously they go around saying, I am Negan, don't they, as following him. Which Dwight does say. But there was an interesting point that you made when we were talking about it earlier between their exchange, wasn't it? And that was to do with
Yes,
Simon.
yes, it was. What it
Yeah,
was is like, you know, Negan asks for an explanation, like, hey, I was locked up in the basement by Rick, and it was kind of hurtful that you guys didn't show up. Where Dwight explains, like, hey, we thought you were dead. And as Simon, as your right hand man, I thought you wanted him to take over, to be first in place to take over and be the leader. And he's kind of trying to find a reason to basically save himself, but also to justify what happened. And I find that interesting because if you rewatch that episode, it actually did went like that. You know, they found the car upside down with all the blood in it. Negan was
yeah,
nowhere to be found, and Simon says, um, "Well, I guess it's already been done. It's over with." And even Dwight threw his cigarette in the car, and it bursted out in flames. So they legit. That's what I think, that they legit thought Negan was dead
yeah,
because Nobody's gonna go into an abandoned building thinking that he might be in there. I mean, there was no blood trail because if he was wounded, there would have been a trail of blood leading into the basement of the building, didn't it? And it
Mm.
didn't. So they thought that he died in that car and got eaten or something like that. So I found that was really legit to think he was dead. So basically, what Simon did at that moment is what he was supposed to do. The leader falls, is away, passed away, disappeared. You take over. That's the job of a right hand man because
Yeah.
right hand man is next in line. So at that point, Simon did exactly what Negan basically wanted of him. So
Yeah. So it's kind of, yeah, it almost makes you wonder why there would be any weirdness about that. Because it
mhm,
is, like you say, when you have a deputy, it's almost they would naturally step in because otherwise, who's going to take charge of it all?
exactly, because it's still a community that needs a leader. Because without a leader, what's happening to the rest of the community? You get
Yeah.
riots because everybody wants to step up. So you
Yeah.
have to someone to step in at the moment when needed, and
Mm.
that was the time.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And at the end of that scene, we actually see, which I noticed more this time round, was one walker who was kind of changed to the fence. And that's relevant because of what happens later on in the episode. So that was I picked that up um, straight away. And it was like, yeah, that's quite good how they've done that.
It was like an
Then,
Easter egg, wasn't it?
yeah, it was for sure. Then we're in the sanctuary now. So they're in this meeting room, aren't they? And Negan is just kind of sat there cleaning Lucille. And Simon's obviously at the other end of the table, and you've got the other guys around. And he's saying, well, he's trying to explain himself almost, but again, why does he need to in a way because of what we've discussed? But he says, I just ask that you give me a pass on this one. And I wondered, does that show there's an element of fear in Simon? He doesn't come across like there's any fear. He's just kind
Yeah,
of
he
saying,
doesn't at all.
if you were upset by it, let's just leave, let's pass on it, let's leave
Yeah,
it.
he's like, I did what I had to do at that point, and just move on. We have bigger problems. That's what it sounded like to me, and
Yeah,
he didn't show any signs of fear or like he was kind of upset, but he owned it. It's like what he said, like, okay, this one is on me. I own this one. So he
yeah,
kind of is acknowledging his mistake
yes.
at that point. So he knew he did something that it wasn't supposed to do.
In a weird way, but yeah, like we could debate it and debate it, couldn't we? Because it's like, was it the wrong thing? But obviously, in Negan's eyes, it was. And then he says, "I'm going to need you on your knees." And obviously, I know from having seen it before. Okay, but
So
but the first time I watched it when it was first
I
out,
thought it was the end of
yeah,
him. I thought this is it. I was sitting like this. I'm like, no, 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 no.
I did as well, especially because he was cleaning Lucille beforehand, and it was like you're getting her ready to do something.
Yep.
And the music kind of went a bit as well, didn't it? And I was thinking, yeah, the build up. But Simon, what I noticed about him, he was looking straight ahead.
Yeah, he wasn't afraid. He was ready. He's like, okay, if this is gonna
Yeah,
be it, this is
yeah,
it. He
yeah,
again, like on the table, no fear. It looked like in the way he was pissed off. Like the the look in his eyes went like, oh shit. And then it kind of went like it zoomed back in and he started kind of frowning and he's like it was like well he totally disagreed with it, but he wasn't scared at all. He's like, okay, this is the end of it, this is it, and I'm gonna take it, and that's it.
yeah. And he was exactly fixed there. And he even says there's no move to make. So he wasn't willing to fight back or
Yeah.
anything. But then obviously Negan, he doesn't do anything at that point. All is forgiven almost. So it's kind of like, phew, that's okay then,
See, the first time when you see that, you're like, ooh, okay, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
But now I've looked it back, and I was like, well, was that a setup? Did he already know? Did he already suspected something? Because he had to make the remark of Oceanside. Yeah, Simon killed all the boys and men of Oceanside because he made that remark, and then he kept saying things that went wrong, and I'm kind of wondering when I looked it back earlier today, it's like, did he really let it slip, or was it a diversion? Was it like, I'll get to you later kind of thing? That's
It,
it.
yeah, it could have been, because it's almost, well, I'll let you off, so then he thinks he's okay. He can
Mm-hmm.
do what he wants to do.
Like letting Simon off guard, like getting him off guard. That's what it looked to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a plausible thing there, definitely. He does say, doesn't he, to Negan, I won't let you down, not you.
Nothing. Yeah.
um, so there is that admiration for him as a leader, Negan, so obviously then he's presenting these plans of what they want to do with Hilltop, and they want to sort of surround Hilltop with snipers. Simon's then saying he's very happy, like, I'm very happy to have you back, boss man. So that's just kind of affirming he's back.
It was so not meant. You could hear that with the tone in his voice and the eye, the look in his face at that moment. He was like, he's lying.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Dwight, he wants Dwight to stay in the room after the rest of them go. And there's that kind of that look that Simon gives.
Simon got suspicious.
Yeah, he
got
did.
Suspicious really bad.
Yeah,
he's like, okay, why do you have to stay? Because he's like standing there and he's looking, like trying to make eye contact with Dwight to see if Dwight would let anything out or something, like a sign or shit that didn't happen. And then he just walked off. But he walked off and he made like a face when he turned like this. You could see like he's like, oh shit. And he was like, you can see him think like, as long as Dwight shuts his mouth.
Yeah.
You could see that like the whole facial expression, like, as long as Dwight shuts his mouth, I'm fine.
Yeah. It was, yeah, totally that. And clever, because just in that look, and this is what, again, he's such a good actor, you can get all that from just his look, can't you?
Yes.
Brilliant. So he stays, and then we go back to Eugene with Daryl and Rosita, and Rosita's obviously not happy with him at all, and she does say, don't worry, you'll live, but first we're going to force you to do something with your pathetic life. And that quote, part of it, is mentioned later on, which obviously we'll come on to. So that was quite good how that came up. So Dwight has actually taken a copy of this plan, the Hilltop plan. So then we're thinking, okay, so Dwight's going to probably help Rick and our survivors. And there's almost that, so we know really what he's trying to do, and it's secretive. And there is almost, as the viewer, you're kind of thinking, are you gonna get away with it? Because all this stuff going on, Negan's just come back and he's on it. Are you going to get away with it? So he's sort of hiding things, and Simon comes into his room, doesn't he?
Yeah, he knocks the door.
Yeah, wants to know what happened, because he's all, worried about that, and paranoid potentially as well. Because I did think, maybe he's going to take the number 2 position at that point, away from Simon because of everything. And he wants to get Dwight on board with the others to take down the management, as he says, like-minded individuals. So it's almost like Simon is kind of saying that
there are more people thinking the same what he was thinking.
Absolutely.
And I find this an interesting scene, just because Simon has really, really good argument of is it arguments to Dwight about, look what he did to you, your wife, your face, and all the insults, the verbal abuse, everything he did to you, what he took from you. Like, you wanna take revenge on that, right? Which makes me think, because as we know Simon basically only as right-hand man of Negan. We don't know a lot about Simon's background. So we don't know how they met each other, or how they how he got that position. We don't know if Simon had a family, where he comes from, what he
True.
did before the apocalypse. We don't know anything. So I find that quite interesting, because he's going to Dwight like, he did this to you, he did that to you. But what did he do to Simon before all this?
Yeah.
Because there has to be a point, which we obviously don't see in the show, that makes Simon make this decision that he's actually making during this episode. Because what happened to him? What did he lose in
Yeah.
order to get what he has? Because we don't know. Because all we know, the first moment we see Simon is on the road when Rick and his crew are in the camper. And then he's like, hold up, we're going to take your stuff. That's the first time we meet Simon. And then the second time we see him is
Yeah.
the demise of Glenn and Abraham, when Negan asks him for a pen. So we don't know. What do we exactly know about Simon? Because
Mm.
we don't know. Like, yeah, of course they made like a little background story up, and as Steven has a couple of times, but the stories always change. Like, then it's a mortgage broker, and then suddenly it's a teacher. Like, Steven likes to change the story a lot. And so, but what was it? Like, and I find that interesting, and I hope, well, obviously we're not going to find out anymore because, well, this episode, but
Yeah.
I wanted to know more about him.
Yeah, that's a good point, because he was a good character, and there was more depth, I
Yes.
think, to discover.
Like, nobody is as evil as that of the day that they are born. So what made him like that? I would have wanted to know that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So so they're in the room, aren't they? As you said, yeah, Simon is reminding Dwight of all the things Negan has done. He says about meeting in the courtyard after rounds.
Yeah.
And Simon actually calls him my
My
boy.
boy. I
Mm,
thought that was so cute. And Dwight
yeah,
was terrified because he was completely like this. And I'm like, Simon was sincere at that moment. He's like, yes, I've got you. You're with me. We're
yeah,
going to do this. He was determined. And Dwight was he looked scared. He's like, ooh,
yes, yes.
and well, Simon did come really close face to face with him, didn't he? So,
Very, very intense.
yeah. But he seemed scared at that moment, and doubtful, and he's like, kind of, Dwight came over confused to me, like not knowing what he was
Yeah,
supposed to do,
to do, yeah,
because
yeah,
he knew about you could see. And again, when Simon told him like, Negan did this and did that to you, you could see in Dwight's eyes, in the way how he was standing and reacting and looking, that he knew Simon was right.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
obviously, like, what would have gone through Dwight's mind, because Dwight is trying to help Rick, obviously,
Mm,
but it could have all ended. It could have all been ended with
yeah.
helping Simon, couldn't it?
It could, yeah. If these characters make different decisions, like the impact it makes kind of
It would
further
have
on.
been so big.
Yeah, it would have been. So after that point, we then go back to this kind of the interlude that we have with Eugene and all of this. So he's with Rosita and Daryl, and this is the gross bit when he makes himself sick.
Oh, disgusting. Why
And
would you?
yeah, and he does that because I wondered at first, and again, not this time round because I knew what was going to happen, but the first time round when he put the two fingers by his side, and I was
Okay.
like, "What are you doing with your two fingers?" And then, of course, he sticks them in his throat and barfs all over Rosita.
It's disgusting.
Now, that's not a way to kind of, chat up the woman that you do have feelings for, but obviously
Yeah,
in that
exactly.
moment, yeah, it's almost
But
like
it
his
was smart. It was smart. Let's
yeah,
be honest. I mean, he wanted the decoy, and he saw the walkers through the car window, and then he saw a
yeah.
way out, and then he did it. Cause so it was disgusting, yeah, but it was a really smart move.
It was a move because he wanted to get away, he wanted to get back, for whatever reason, and I know we'll discuss it, to the factory. So he's kind of leaving these people that were kind of his family almost, because now he's got this role in the factory, and whatever motivations he's got for doing that, he wants to get back there. So they lose him, don't they? Then we kind of have this random scene. I know it's not random, but Aaron's in the woods and he's all dehydrated, isn't he? And the Oceansiders kind of see him, and I know he's sort of trying to implore them to sort of fight with them against the saviors, for their best good, really. So I know it has meaning, but it's like a little filler scene, really.
I had to actually look really closely because I was looking. I was like, "Who is that?" Because we're used to him having the big beard, don't we? And I really had to look like, "Who is that?" Because at one point I don't know why, I thought it was Sadiq. I don't know why, but I found it a confusing moment just because like.
Yes.
The Oceansiders are like, oh no, he ran into the woods. He's as good as dead, and I'm like,
Yeah.
It really got me confused.
Yeah.
At that point.
It did with me. Yeah. So yeah, I just saw it's a kind of filler episode, necessary in some ways, I guess, to get them together to fight with them. But we want to get back to the action. Really, we want to know what's happening in the sanctuary. So we do go back, and they are in the courtyard.
Oh.
Dwight, oh, it's all right, yeah.
Oh, something happened.
The battery?
No, someone was calling me. Let me see how I get back.
Okay.
I am not used to Zoom at all. Back to meeting. There we go. Apologies, I got called and everybody is notified that I'm busy, but
that's all right, no problem. I think probably because we know what's coming up, that's probably what happened to your phone.
I'm already saying my phone is like, we need to shut it off right now. We're not going there.
Oh no. So we've got like Dwight's in the courtyard, and it's almost like I could feel tension building in this moment. Obviously the rest of the guys are coming out, so you know there's a big group of them that's going to come together. Simon's there, and then Simon's almost taking charge again, isn't he, in the middle of all these.
The way how he walked out of that door from the steps down, he already went like chest puffed, and he's like, I'm gonna do it. He's like determined. Yeah. He was, yeah.
But I will say this, and I know I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me, but there was a sexiness to him at that point.
Oh hell yeah.
I certainly found that myself, because it's just that kind of, I don't know, that confidence within him.
Yes, exactly. Like, I'll blush you now, but yes, it did. Just the way how he was like, and he kind of marched down that steps at the moment, like, this is it. And like, I don't know, like, I just like to watch it.
Yeah. But that in itself, you see, I find fascinating, because obviously I come at it from as well as being a Walking Dead fan, I come at it from the interest in the writing and the production. And something that I've learned very recently is the use of levels, which is when characters are at different levels, and it almost shows the power between them. So the very fact that Simon came down to meet the rest of them from up, it's almost like he had the power in that moment, because he's like coming to meet them. So I found that really good, and added to his sex appeal at the moment, clearly. So he actually says, though, we need to make it quick, quiet, and respectful. So he's not saying we're going to go in there and we're going to just like completely annihilate.
He has a form of deep respect for Negan, and he shows that all the way through. So like it nearly looked like, you know, it was also bothering him that he needed to do it, but it was necessary, because the way that things were going on, it couldn't work like that any longer. And I think that he just saw like things need to change because we are in danger. And it's like how you said in a previous episode, I think a couple of episodes before this episode, is we need to expunge. If we don't do anything, they will come for us.
Yes.
He said that to Negan also in the meeting when he was on about the widow and the king, and he's like, we need to do something now, or we are gonna be biting the dust. Yes. And so I think at that moment, Simon in that episode was like, you know, things need to change. We need to step up, because it's either us or them. And I think that he really did it a little bit, you know, with a heavy heart, because him and Negan obviously have a past, and he has this respect for Negan, and he showed that, and he's like, you know, kill him respectfully because he deserved that. He did a lot for us. which is true.
Yeah. So in that respect, he's not, although he's ultimately saying, you know, we need to kill him, he's not being vicious about it.
No, there was like a kind of a heart in him at that moment.
Yeah. So sexy and a heart. Wow.
And a badass, like a mean person. Like, that's the perfect combination, isn't it? Who doesn't love a good villain with a heart?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So Simon actually singles out Dwight, doesn't he, by saying, you know, the kill is yours if you want it, because of what he'd said before about, you know, what Negan's done to him. And you can sense that Dwight is uncomfortable, really, can't you, in that moment?
Yeah, because he also still asked Dwight, like, you know, there's no way out anymore. You're here now.
Yeah.
There's no way out. You're here. This is going to happen. And it kind of looked to me, again, when you look at Simon's face, it's the expression face that he has, that he could kind of see that Dwight was doubting, because Dwight was like looking down and like, you know. So I think Simon had a feeling that Dwight was still not 100% behind the choice.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And again, very good with the body language, how they've managed to get that across. And then we hear Negan's whistling again. So then we're like, oh shit, what's going to go down now? So interestingly, because he kind of comes out, doesn't he? But Simon is staring at Dwight. He's not even looked at Negan at that.
Like it looked like he knew. Like he obviously knew. And that's what I said. Like the moment before that, when he thought Dwight was doubting, and then Negan coming out, Simon instantly knew, because Dwight was the only one at that point who knew about it.
Yeah.
Because he said we need to talk to like-minded, but he did not say, like, tell him the plan. So I believe Dwight was the only one who knew. So the moment Negan walks out, Simon knew, shit, he told on me.
Yeah, for sure. So he's got his gaze on Dwight. He does eventually turn it to Negan, because he's got to look him in the eye eventually, with all that. All of a sudden, the other guys around, the other saviors are shot, aren't they? Well, the lead.
He even thanked Dwight for enlightening him in what was happening, because he came on to Dwight and pulled his arm around him, and he's like, well, thanks, Dwighty boy, for telling me. And then he started counting, and then the whole circle was gone, and it was Simon on his own, and he got captured.
Yeah. Simon got captured. He got grabbed, didn't he? So it's almost then you're thinking, right, well, he's got away with it once. But Negan's not going to take this lying down now.
Yelling at Dwight, why? After everything he did to you.
Yes.
Like, he was upset about that. He's like, why did you stab me in the back after everything he did to you? And I basically he was saying, I've been good to you, nothing but good. And you betray me for someone who took away your life, your love, your face.
Yes.
Everything. He was upset about that.
Absolutely. And Dwight's response was simply that he would win. So he almost knew that Negan would win, and that was why, wasn't it? That was kind of his answer to when Simon was saying that, that he would win.
And the first time when I saw it and he said that, I didn't agree.
Well, I put a question here. Do we think that's true? Because it's almost so it's almost like a bit of a cop-out reason, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Well, I will get into that a little bit later, because that's something I really want to discuss.
Okay, yes, no problem at all. So then we actually see, I don't know if it's a bit of food or just a bit of garbage, but Negan uses Lucille on it, like bashes it down, and it's almost Simon's face then in the shot, and it's just
in the dudes that are actually turning into walkers around him, because they got all shot, so they're turning, and he's stomping the brains.
Oh, that's what, that's what it is. I was thinking, what is it that he's doing?
No, he was actually killing the guys that were turning into walkers. So he's like, there was only a couple of them that got missed, because most of them got shot in the head, but there was like 2 or 3 of them who got shot in the chest, and he was putting them down.
That makes sense, because as to why Simon's face was the way it was, because I wouldn't say it was total fear on his face. It was almost a knowing of he's in for it, but it's whether he's going to get Lucille'd or not at that
Yeah,
point.
I think that's what he was thinking. He's like, am I gonna get shot next, or what is happening now? I don't think it was fear at all, because he's been fearless throughout the whole episode before that. So I don't think it was fear. He was just like, shit, I got caught.
Did you think at this point that his fate was sealed? Like watching it, did you think, yeah, he's gone? He's Negan's gonna,
Yes.
yeah,
yes, 100%. That was the moment that I started getting upset.
yeah, because it's like that inevitable thing.
That was because he already had that pass, and he had a pass before with Oceanside, and he's like, a pass, and then Simon saying like, I won't let you down, and he just did it again, and then at that moment, when Negan says to him, you want to be the man, to be the man, you have to beat the man, and that's the moment that I knew that it was done.
It was done. Yeah, I wrote that down actually because I thought that was quite a good quote. And then of course we get to the fight scene, so it's getting close to the bit. So yeah, just want to take this time to just
yeah, well, you know what is interesting in the beginning of the fight scene is what we discussed last time after the podcast was, you asked me a question last podcast, would Simon be good in the Whisperer War? And then my answer was, he's a show-off guy. And this is exactly the moment what I meant. He shows off, he's like, oh, okay, guys, you know, I didn't want this, but, you know, this is going to be over very, very soon. He was really sure about him winning. And he was all, you know, he made himself big. And he's really, really tall. Steven's 6'2", I believe, 6'3". He made him tall. He made himself look big. And he's like, you know, putting his sleeves back up. And he's like, you know, I'm going to do this. And, you know, when Negan said to him, you know, to beat the man, you have to beat the man. I think that was also respect from Negan towards Simon. Because he wanted to give him that chance. Like everybody else we've known that came across a bad Negan died instantly.
Yeah.
And he again, it was like it's like a love-hate relationship between Simon and Negan, because at that point Negan obviously wants him dead, but still gives him the chance to redeem himself and become that leader. So there is a respect from both sides towards each other, which I find interesting, because Negan never said to anyone else, okay, beat me, try it, give it your best. And he did with Simon. So that was this, you know, there's this respect towards each other that that really shown at that moment. And then obviously, you know, standing there and Simon's giving his little speech, and when this is done, we'll all go back to work and we're gonna start rebuilding and heal what needs to be healed. And he doesn't finish his sentence. He punches him straight in the mouth.
I put that on my notes. He goes in there hard. That's what I put on my notes.
He does. At that point, I rooted so hard because he doesn't punch him once, doesn't he? He punches him several, I think it's 4 or 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
And knowing Steven is quite muscular, he's really tall. He is, and then obviously also met Jeffrey, who played Negan. He's not that tall as him, and in a different way muscular. So the moment when Simon blew his first punch and then kept going, and I was like, wait a second, that was the first time I was watching it, this could actually be it for Negan. I started changing my opinion because he went in so hard, and it looked for a moment that Negan couldn't recover from it because he was going down immediately because it was a big blow. And then Negan got back up and Simon gets his first punch, and I'm like, oh.
I know. I kind of thought that whole thing about Simon going in there hard, it does show he's got that fighter in him for sure. And he wants to do it for the sanctuary as well in that leadership role, because he knows, as we've discussed, what he can do for them
Yeah.
as a leader, but also, to save them from the inevitable that would happen if there wasn't a strong leader in place.
Yes.
I'd put by the side, do you think it's just about fighting for his life in that moment, or there's more to it? And I think there was more to it. It wasn't
Definitely more thought to it. Yes, he
yeah,
fought for himself, but he fought for his whole community.
yeah,
Because you could obviously see that, and there was like this kind of like a passion in his eyes at that moment, be like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then everything will be all right, and we'll pick up our lives again. And
yeah.
but what my question is with this fight, like, did it sell? Because that's also a point that Stephen and Jeffrey has recently released an interview about. It's like they wanted to make it sell because of the height difference, the length difference between Jeffrey and Stephen. If you put them in real life next to each other, Jeffrey would have lost.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
that's what they both say.
Yeah,
And so they needed to find a way to make it sell, because if you just look at the proportions of them both, there's no way Negan could have won that, right? So yeah, did it sell? To me, it never did, not even the first time I've watched it. The only way, well, obviously how it happened is that Simon got punched in the stomach, and then got a knee, and then got an elbow in the back, which gave Negan the upper hand.
yeah. And then of course,
And then he throws him to the floor.
yeah, and then he's on the floor, and you might want to get your tissues out at this moment.
Where are they? Where are they? No, I'm good. I'm not watching it, so I'm good.
But almost at this moment, like Dwight's also telling Gregory to leave, isn't he? Because this is the opportunity to leave with the copy of the plan that he's made for Rick. And so, like, give this to Rick. So he sees that as an opportunity, whilst Negan is strangling Simon to death.
Which is weird, because nobody missed the two from the whole, because everybody was surrounded. Nobody missed Dwight or Gregory, and I find it interesting that Dwight sent it Gregory, because Gregory was already an untrustworthy person to the Alexandrian community. So why in the hell would you send someone who they're already not a fan about?
I was thinking that. I was like, what?
That was really weird. Like, Dwight could have better gone himself, because Daryl knew what Dwight was doing. So Dwight would have been the person to give that to the community. But then again, of course, if Dwight would have left, Negan would have known.
Yeah,
But then again, Gregory is a character that is standing out in.
Oh, it's okay. It's mine. That's okay.
Gregory is also a person standing out in his grey suit.
I'm just going to stick my charger into my phone. Sorry, it was my battery. It's Halloween today as well. There's loads of weird stuff going on. But, hopefully you can see me.
Yeah. So that it's interesting, because both of the characters would have been missed, and at the moment they went missing, both of them, nobody missed them, and I was like, how can you not miss them? Because they were standing right in the middle of it.
Yeah, they were, and it was a bit of a distraction also from that horrific scene, because as we know, and not wanting to open this wound for you, but
you can open it, you can do it.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
Does deliver that kind of fateful blow and crushes his windpipe, and Simon's dead.
That was the most horrifying sound I've ever heard in my life. The moment when you hear that crack. See, because the first time I remember watching it, the first time that he was laying on the ground, and for some reason I missed that sound of the throat breaking. I missed it. So I was sitting there. I remember it like the day of yesterday. I was sitting there like, is he dead? Because to me, it didn't look he was dead. He was laying on the floor. I thought he was knocked out.
Yes.
I didn't realize at the first moment that he was dead, because I thought it's winning, and then he loses, and then he goes to jail or something. But at that point, it didn't came through to me that Simon was actually dead.
Yeah.
Until the specific moment, and that's where I was like, no. And I actually, rewatched it at that moment too, and that's when I heard it, and I was like, oh my god, oh my God. And like, and then, well, it
Mm.
cost me a lot of tissues, and
Yeah. It was a
tissues.
sad episode, and it's almost it was sad because, you know,
He didn't deserve it.
he didn't know. I mean,
No,
he fought till the end.
he did.
Was testament to his character, but it was sad to see him go in that way. And also later on, you know, what we see, which we'll get onto when we get onto that point. But you know, it's almost like, yeah, that's just happened now in front of all these people, and it's just, yeah, it wasn't very good. So we then find ourselves back at Hilltop, where Gregory is there, and they recapture him, don't they? They put that cage.
He was really scared. He's I just love Gregory. It's like the same with Simon. They have such expression-needed faces. Like, I don't
Oh,
know. These
very,
two, they're like the combination of them both. You know, it's, I don't
yeah,
know, but both they can mimic so good in their faces. Their facial expressions are spot on. Um, both of them, and then the combination of them, and just, you know, Gregory, the way he looks scared, you believe when you're watching, you believe he's actually scared. Like, he sells it so perfectly.
yeah, very, very good. It's very good. He's obviously passed this plan, the copy of the plan,
Yeah.
to Maggie, Rick, and Michonne, who are there. And then we're back to the sanctuary, and Negan is, you know, promoting Dwight to be his number 2 now. But as we discover, there is a savior, Laura, who's waiting in Dwight's room as they approach the room. And that's almost the big reveal, isn't it? Because Negan found her, and she revealed Dwight's betrayal,
Yes.
with everything gone on with Alexandria.
I think he literally said he was the rat.
Yeah. And then you're thinking, oh God, he's just got rid of Simon. Is Dwight now gonna get it? And I think Dwight was even probably thinking that as well. But then we find out from Negan that he knew that all along, so it's a fake plan that he gave. So this whole plan, and Dwight's probably thinking, oh no, like he's given it to Rick, but that was Negan's intention because it was fake. And
yeah, which makes me think, how long did Negan know for that he was the rat? Because I think Negan knew that for quite long, and that's the reason why he got back to Sanctuary, because obviously he picked up Laura in the car, didn't he?
Yeah.
So he already knew.
Yeah. So he already knew when he was asking him at the beginning of the episode, you know, I want you to remember, or do you remember who you? Yeah. So that was testing him probably. Yeah. Very, very good. Then we're back to the mad scientist himself, Eugene, back at the factory, because he's obviously now he's gone back to the factory, hasn't he? Because he's escaped Rosita and Daryl. And the woman that's there reveals that Negan's back. So Eugene now knows that Negan is back. Yeah, I didn't know what her name was actually. Yeah. And I thought to myself, why is Eugene sort of so keen to align with it? Is it because he feels important, like he's got a purpose? And I know we've had a discussion about it. We touched on it earlier.
I think at that moment he was just pissed the fuck off.
Yeah.
He was really mad. And I think he was, you know, he was really mad of what just had happened to him.
Yeah. And he says, because he sits down, doesn't he? And he's like, we will change savior history evermore. Yes. Which kind of has a double meaning to everything that's going on. And again, when he goes over to talk to Gabriel, he's almost in that power position, because Gabriel sitting down and he's kind of talking down to him, basically telling him that this is the way it's going to be. But he also says, and this goes back to what Rosita has said to him, because Eugene's like, it's time to do something useful with our pathetic lives.
Yeah, which is he stole her quote, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. So then we're at this point. So that's all kind of building up. And we then go back to the scene where Negan is outside the sanctuary, and we see
Walker Simon.
Simon chained to the fence.
See, that made me so mad in so many ways. Like I can literally talk an hour or two about that, but that got me really upset, and that was the point that I got really mad at Negan, and I hated him at that point intensely. Why? First of all, I don't believe Simon deserved to die the way that he did. The fight, and yes, I understand, and that I could have lived with it. But the fact that you turn him into a walker and chain him to a fence like a ravaging dog at that moment made me so mad because he didn't deserve it. Because he did what he had to do when he was the leader. That is what Negan asked of him when he gave him that position. It even made me more mad because you just discovered White is a rat and you let him go, but you killed someone who did what you wanted him to do. You challenged him to this fight. You already won. What are you trying to prove? Why do you let Dwight off? Is this still part of your plan? That made me mad because if there was one in the episode that deserved to die, that was Dwight and not Simon.
Yeah, I found it interesting, sort of from the imagery, from the production value, because of the walker that was chained to the fence at the beginning, and now we see Simon's in the same position. But it is sad, and it is a bit distressing to see him in that way. And it's almost like it's done for pleasure, isn't it? Because that's why they put them up there, because it's just,
it's to make a point. If you cross me, you'll end up dead. That was the whole point. But he didn't deserve it at all.
No. And we do see Negan in the background, and he's communicating with Michonne on this walkie-talkie. And she mentions to him about the letter. There's a letter from Carl for him as well, because when Rick was reading his earlier, we saw that there was one for Negan as well. And you can see in Negan's face, he's moved by that somewhat.
Yes.
In there, and she reads it to him, and again you can kind of feel that he's feeling those words.
It was hitting him. It was hitting him. It was doing something to him. It touched him.
Yeah, it did.
It did, because he really liked Carl, didn't he?
He did. My mind went back to that episode. Is it called "Sing Me a Song"? When Carl. Which I just loved, because that just showed the kind of comedy value of Negan, and the dialogue he was coming out with at that point was brilliant. But in the letter, Carl is actually, because Michonne's obviously reading it, but Carl had said, I think you have to be who you are. Almost like he'd figured Negan out in a way. And he's to end the war. So he's been telling his dad through that letter to end the war and to have peace. And he's doing the same with Negan. However,
to both of them.
Yeah. Negan's not having any of it, is he? Because he's I wouldn't accept your surrender if you come to me on your knees. So then you're like, well, okay, so even those words that touch you, you're still not having.
And I find that interesting, because he says the only way of winning is killing each and every one of you. I think he said that at that moment because he was really pissed off. He just had to kill his right hand man, which I think he was actually bothered about. I don't believe that he intended to actually kill him or something like that, but he was obviously already pissed off about what just had happened. His right hand man got killed by him, and then also Dwight betraying him and flees. So basically the two people that he trusted most had betrayed him already. And I think that somewhere Negan thinks that was their fault. But it also makes me think, like, is he already regretting his choice in killing Simon at that moment? Because Simon warned him for them. And I'm thinking, like, did he regret at that moment? Did he regret it? or was he just pissed off?
Mm.
Because he was really mad. He was uh, his whole body language. He was mad. He was different. He wasn't like the mad Negan with his smart talk that we know. He was
Mm.
different.
Yeah, because if I guess it was Dwight had obviously let Negan know what Simon was arranging. But at that point, yeah, Negan already knew about Dwight. So it's almost like you're still listening to Dwight give you this information and you know he's a rat. It almost felt like maybe he had to kill Simon to prove a point, maybe in front of Dwight.
Because if you already know someone is a rat, right? Then why would you believe every word that's coming out their mouth?
Well, yeah, that's true. And he
Because
he
I wouldn't have done that. Like if someone would betray me and I find out, and then he tells me about a different person that is basically trying to backstab me, I wouldn't believe everything he says. I would be doubting that. I would be no, I would be really
yeah, a bit skeptical of it. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I agree with you. Negan is angry, and it's just we keep seeing him there, and there's always Walker Simon is like just
they
continually
keep yeah, they
oh,
keep
keep
it back
showing
in
him.
my brain.
Yeah,
And when I rewatched it earlier, I skipped the death part. I watched the fight as soon as it was on the floor. I skipped. Then
mm,
there's the Walker part. I skipped,
mm.
but that part I couldn't skip.
No, so he's just there. Oh yeah,
I
moving.
couldn't get around it. I got upset about it.
Yeah, and yeah, so he does feel that killing every last one of them is starting over. That's the only way to do it. But what was interesting, and I know this all because this brings this episode to a close, but then we can kind of delve into it a bit more. Was that Negan never wanted this. Rick made it happen, which
That was so true. I even said that
yeah,
earlier to my TV. Yes,
yeah,
Negan, you were right.
yeah,
Right. 100 freaking percent right. Because
yeah.
it did start with Rick.
It did, because we've talked about this before, how we're following the survivors and we only know from their perspective. But actually, what our group, if we want to say our group, did to Negan's guys, Negan's retaliation with Glenn and Abraham was
Was to
probably just
justify that.
yeah,
Because, again, spoiler alert, people, but Rick went into an outpost of Negan without knowing who Negan was, killing 50 men in their sleep, which is already a really cowardly move in my eyes if you kill people in their sleep. But
yeah,
at that point, they didn't know from each other's existence. So yeah, if I would be a leader of a community and I find out a bunch of my people were just murdered by some random group who's passing by, I would be pissed off. I would want anyone to answer for that. So if Rick never would have done that, then they would have never ran into Negan. It would have been stayed with that one part when they met Simon on the road and he's saying we want 50% of your stuff. They would have given the stuff up and they were back on their way.
yeah,
And then Glenn would still be alive.
yeah.
Everyone, including Simon, would still be alive.
Yes.
Okay? So it is Rick's fault. I blame Rick. So, Andrew Lincoln, if you're watching, I blame you for Simon's death. But
Even though, I mean, I'm very biased because Rick is my favorite character, but I do agree. I do agree. It pains me to say it, but if we were following Negan's group, we'd be thinking, "Oh my God, you got to get these guys because little."
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and the same with the later series as we move on with the other kind of villains. It's almost like, but
Well,
from
you can
there,
even
they're not villains.
back from the first episode from the start. Yes, we got a view of Rick, but all of them were already in the apocalypse like that. So, um, but everywhere Rick came, everything died. Let's be honest. Like everywhere he came, it all burned up in flames. It did with every community, so which makes me think, okay, so are they that good? Like the same thing, like I said to you, and we discussed that before. Um, was Simon really evil? Was he actually a villain? Because I don't believe he was. I
No.
think Simon was misunderstood,
Mm,
and um, I don't think he was that bad because, like you said earlier, all that Simon stood for was the sanctuary and its people, and he
yeah.
wanted to keep that safe. And he said that in a previous episode as well. Um, it is not about saving people; it's about keeping our community safe and alive.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking he wasn't evil; he was misunderstood, and everybody pins him down as evil because he killed so many people. Well, yes, he killed maybe innocent boys and men, but were they that innocent? I mean, we've never learned that side of Oceanside. So, what did Oceanside do for Simon to make that choice? I
Yeah.
mean, look at the scavengers. He killed all of them. That had a really good reason because Jadis was also two-sided. Simon found out. And then when he wanted an apology, he didn't get it. So he's like, okay, then you're all gone. And he was right. I would have done the exact same thing in that situation
Yeah.
because they're all a threat to your to your
Yeah.
community. So,
Yeah.
it's like he said, it is us or them. And I would have thought the same way. So I agree with Simon more than any other character in the show because he was straightforward with everything. He
Yeah.
and even if you go further on into the show, I still believe he was right because if um he didn't have killed Simon, Sanctuary would have never fallen in my eyes because Simon knew what was coming. He knew what was going to happen. And it's just Negan who did not want to listen, who was only about expanding and getting more people. And at the end of all, look at where we're at now. Simon was right.
Yeah.
He was right because where is Sanctuary now? It is gone.
It's
So
gone.
he was right. And which
Yeah.
we both know if Simon would have won that fight, Sanctuary would still be standing strong.
Yeah. And
I, I truly believe that.
yeah, and I wanted to ask you as well if Negan hadn't have come back, or at least if he hadn't have come back to the sanctuary, if he'd kind of got lost and gone somewhere
If
else,
he
or
really was dead. Well, I
if
think because
yeah,
Simon didn't want any of these wars. He actually mentioned that in the car when they were driving back from where they lost Negan, where they found his car, or when they went to it. I can't remember. I think it was in the chase where Rick hit Negan's car, and they were in the van, and then he was like looking kind of like, oh shit, Negan just got off the road. You see like a sinister smirk in Simon's facial expressions, where everybody's like, oh, but I was like, whatever. And um that he even said like, he didn't want all these wars. We need to worry about ourselves. So I think if Simon would have won, the war would have ended because Simon didn't want any of this. He wanted the community to be safe. He didn't want all these wars. And he kind of said that multiple times throughout this season that it's, you know, not necessary. Yes, Simon is kind of like, yeah, let's kill everybody, but at the same time, all the other communities are the same. We need to kill everybody. So they are all like-minded in we have to kill everybody and be the only survivors. And um, I think Simon would have not at that point attacked Alexandria because the only beef that Alexandria had was Negan.
yeah, it was,
Rick
yeah,
was Rick was obsessed with Negan, and Negan was obsessed with Rick, which in my eyes is also the reason why Carl died because he didn't pay attention to his son at all. He was too obsessed with the Negan thing that
mm,
he didn't notice his son slipping out. And like, how as a parent can you not know your kid wandering out? Like, I'm a mom myself. How do
yeah,
you not know? Like when my kid disappear, I know instantly that they're not here, and I'm gonna go look for them. So
mm,
even if they're adults, like they were so obsessed with each other that they forgot everything around it. And that's what I thought was so real about Simon, because he wasn't really busy with this war. He was busy with staying alive, rebuilding, and like he said, everything that needs to be healed, we need to get in the healing process. So he wanted to improve Sanctuary, get it back up to speed, and get it back into his old form, which
Yes.
at that point makes me believe that back in the room where they're having this meeting, Negan says like, we've come, we're going way back. When I took over this place, you were there, which made me believe that Negan is the one who took over Sanctuary, that they already had a leader, and Simon didn't agree with that leader, so helped Negan out to become a leader because of Negan's visions, and that Negan did not deliver those visions that he said back then. So I believe that Simon was already part of the Sanctuary before Negan became a leader.
Yeah, and that could very well be, a possibility, couldn't it? And it's a shame we don't really
Well, but
know.
I know in the comics, Negan
Yeah,
finds the Sanctuary and basically kills them off in cold blood and then gains Sanctuary. That's what it
right.
happens in the comics. But no,
Okay.
obviously Simon isn't in the comics.
No,
So,
no. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's
so I believe Simon was a part of the former Sanctuary
mm,
and helped Negan, to get that position that he has, and that Negan kind of promised Simon like golden mountains, stuff like that, and he didn't deliver. And that at one point, now with this whole war breaking out, that it made Simon think like, wait a minute, this isn't right. All we know that Negan called him a psychotic, demented freak, something like that. I'm like, no, it's not. It's the other way around, because you know, Simon wants this community to exist, to expand, to heal, to provide. And he knows Gregory was a backstabber. That's why he wanted to get rid of Gregory.
for
Because,
sure.
he knows that Gregory wasn't trustworthy. Simon knew that all along. But he
Yeah.
kind of used Hilltop for, the supplies and stuff. And he got his own uh, tequila from from Gregory, so that's how he kept Gregory close, because you know what they say, it's better to keep your enemies as a friend.
Yeah.
So um, I believe that Simon knew more than he let us show, and I do know from at Comic Con where Stephen attended, from a panel that he also said, and also I think he said it in The Talking Dead, he was not aware at the time that Simon was going to be the one who killed the Oceanside people. And he
Mm,
said in The Talking Dead and at a panel that I actually attended, that if he knew that his character was responsible for that, he would have played Simon in a different way. He would have made him more like a psychopath.
that's interesting.
Because right now I wanted to give Simon like a death and like wanted made him complicated. But he said when I read that, because this is what he said at the panel, um, I'm gonna try to say it as good as possible as how he said it. Um, that when he read it at that point, he wasn't aware of it, and he said um, that he was kind of like, okay, so basically I was just like playing like a psychotic man, but he didn't gave him that psychotic um, character throughout the season. So he said like, if I knew that beforehand, I would have played him so much different, and I would have made him more evil than I did now, because basically we could have said back then, if he would have done that, we could have said, yes, he's a villain. Right
Mm,
now, there's two sides to him. There's people who love Simon, there's people who hate Simon. And sadly, there are more people that hate him, because And that's what I hope when people view this podcast, this episode, is to look at him. And I'm asking all the viewers that are watching this, try to um, look at in um, my side, in my eyes, how I'm like saying, like, look at him in a different perspective, like that I've been telling throughout this podcast. Like, try to envision that and ask yourself the question, was he that bad? Because I think a lot of people will, by watching this, will start thinking about it, especially when they go further into the show, or still watching it, with
Yeah.
all the things that happen now.
Mhm.
You
Would it
know,
same?
was
It's
he that bad or was he right? Because I believe he was 100% right, and he wanted to help Negan and to keep him from making a mistake. And that mistake he did make because, well, he didn't believe Simon, because he's all about this war with Rick, his obsession with Rick, his obsession with saving people, because you can't trust people in an apocalypse, Negan. You can't.
no, no. I mean, it is interesting, and as you say, you know, anybody who's watching it or rewatching it, it is fascinating, as we found. I know this episode's close to your heart anyway, but it's when you go back and you look at the episode again, with a fresh perspective, you do see different things, and you do look at the dynamics between the characters like Simon and Dwight. And if people were to do that and then recognize, if a different choice had been made, it would have then had a different outcome, and that just spirals, doesn't it? I mean, I know obviously we've got the setup now for this all-out war,
Yeah.
and at that point, saviors against everybody else, and that's where we are, because it was the penultimate episode. We're building up to the season finale of season 8. But yeah, we know what comes after that, and you do think that throughout the whole of The Walking Dead, actually, the different choices that the characters make, things could have gone a lot different. And then you think, if Negan actually did die or he went off, Simon would have potentially still been the leader. Different story. They might not have had an all-out war. Something else might have happened, and it would have been completely different in that sense.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because, well, if you go a little bit further in the story, is when Regina, the one that you didn't
Yeah,
name the
yeah.
name of, is with Jared, and they come across Carol. Remember when they are like burning all the saviors up and they're
Yeah,
retaliating?
yes.
Regina is the only. I tweeted about this, and the actress who plays Regina actually shared my tweet on this. She was the only savior who was standing on a cart and says, "This is for Simon. This is revenge for Simon." So she knew it, he was right. And that's like when I clapped and I
Yeah,
took my head off. And I was like,
yeah,
yes, girl,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Because she knew it. And I really think at that moment that she fought back about Simon, his words, or she kind of fancied him, which I also wondered. But she's the only one of all the saviors in the further in the story who said, who was trying to attack them, and it's like, this is for Simon. Because I truly believe that Regina was thinking back at that moment about Simon's his worth and knew he was right.
Yes. Yeah.
I clapped. I was like, yes, girl, yes.
Yeah.
I really think she did.
Yeah.
And I really think Negan has thought about it back in jail. He must have. Because
well,
actually everything he said came true, because
mm,
this is what he said. So I can't get my head around it that Negan has not fought back about it.
it is a weird one, isn't it? When you think of what's happened from the episode we've been talking about tonight to now where we are with Negan, and how things have changed. And there would have had to have been moments of reflection on certain things. But does he regret it? Would he admit it if he did regret it? Is another thing, isn't it? he is kind of owning more of his mistakes, if you want to call it that now, isn't he? But even the later stuff, and again, you know, not wanting to give away what's coming up, but with the Whisperers and Alpha and what happens between Negan and Alpha, which is a massive thing.
He pulls a Simon. Let's be honest.
Yeah. He does, but would Simon have gone to the same degree that Negan had to? And I have to bring it back to that sock moment again.
No, he wouldn't have. But what I'm saying is, like, what he pulled a Simon is, Simon gained trust of other saviors to go against Negan at that point, and Negan got trust of the savior of the Whisperers.
Yeah.
What he needed.
Yeah.
So basically, I think Negan learned of the mistake. But when you, well, don't want to give away things, but when he was having his depression moment, when he was in captured, thinking he was gonna die in that jail cell, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think he would have fought back about it, because, you know, there's a quote that he said, I think, in this season, and I'm not sure about that, but he said, what was it again? I need to say it correctly. Fight for what is yours, because one day it will be someone else's. And what happened to him?
Yeah.
He lost everything he built up.
He
So at
did.
that moment, with that quote, I really thought that he was thinking back about Simon, because Simon was all about the community and the
Yeah.
sanctuary and keeping it safe and
Yeah.
keeping it from falling. And at that point, he had lost everything.
Yeah. And Simon did fight, didn't he? Not necessarily what was his, because it kind of was his, because the sanctuary was his community, even though he was then the leader, then not the leader because Negan's back, but he did fight for that. So yeah, it is interesting looking back.
He
It
fought
really
for
is.
his beliefs.
He did, yeah, and would continue to do so, because I think he would continue to do so. I know we discussed it last time. If Simon had survived and he was at this point now, still within the story, would he have actually?
I think he would have kept within the sanctuary. He would have expanded. What I believe, with now rewatching this, I think if Simon would have still been there, would have won the fight, Negan's out, he would have rebuilt the sanctuary. He would have made it heal. He would have given that healing process. Yes, he would have butchered off Hilltop, because that was his plan. That was a solid plan. He was going to do that. And I think he only wanted to do that because he knew Gregory was bad news. That's why I believe that he wanted to do it, because at that point, Gregory was still in charge of Hilltop. And I think he would have pulled the Hilltop with the sanctuary, so expand sanctuary into Hilltop and sanctuary too, because of the crops and everything that can grow in the Hilltop. Because as you see, there is no green around the sanctuary. There's no ground to grow anything. You know, they've tried, but they miserably failed. I think he would have enlarged it and, you know, just kept with his own community, and whatever comes a threat, he would have expunged it, like he would say. He would have kept to himself, get his supplies like that they always used to do. And but I think that if hard was coming to hard, I think Simon would have worked together with a community, which more likely would have been Kingdom in my eyes than it would have been Alexandria. But yeah, I think that the sanctuary would still exist. That is a definitely thing. It wouldn't be abandoned like now.
No. Potentially with Walker Simon, you know, still on the fence. I don't want to bring that up again, Reina.
I'm so upset about that. Like, how can you do that? Like, obviously, Stephen said it was a really fun thing to do, like being a walker in the blood, and he wished he could have been the walker longer, is what he said as well. And he wished that he could have had some more time as a walker, and I'm glad he didn't. Sorry, Stephen, I really am, but I didn't like it. And But what I did found, well, good about Walker Simon is that the throat was completely purple. You could see it was crushed. That was
Yeah.
a really good
It,
detail they did.
yeah, it was good. And I can imagine, as you were just saying there about his feeling of wanting to have played that a bit longer as an actor,
Yeah.
it would be quite interesting to do that. And from your point of view, you know, as an upcoming actress and all of that, you know, that potentiality of doing something like that must be quite interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a kind of viewer and also liking the character of Simon, you don't really want to see it, do you? So it's kind
No,
of
you don't.
um
To be
but
fair, I must admit that through all the season, that we lost so many people.
yeah.
Simon is for me still till now the only death in The Walking Dead that I cried. And I was upset for 3 days straight. I've cried for 3 days straight, almost. Yes. It's the only death for me that was it for me. It's the only episode I cannot rewatch, at least not when he actually dies in the Walker part. Um, I get really upset when people post his Walker pictures. I kind of be like, I don't want to see this post. I'm clicking them off.
Yeah, I must admit, when I think of like the characters' deaths from our group, I know Simon wasn't part of the group, but those characters we kind of follow and we do like. I can't think if there was one that I cried over. It might have been Carl, and that might have been because there was like sad music playing or something. Because how that was done, it was quite sad, wasn't it? But also a shocking moment for me, and it is a spoiler again going further forward into other series, but the Pike moment.
Yeah, it didn't do me nothing at
No,
all. No,
no.
nothing. I'm really cold at that point. Like it didn't. I thought it was kind of funny. Sorry, I did.
I didn't cry, but what happened for me, I was, and again, I don't read the comics, so it wasn't, you know, I couldn't foresee anything like that happening if it was in the comics. So I was watching, thinking, okay, there's so and so, there's another person, and then you get the characters that we know more, and because I've done a bit of cosplay of Tara, when her face was, well, her head was on her, and I was just, oh my god. But then you knew there was another Pike there because you'd already seen the certain number of them, and obviously it was Henry,
They
wasn't
kept coming. They kept coming, didn't they? The
it?
Pikes. They didn't stop.
That was the shocker, and that I found that odd in a way that that was episode 15 of a season. It wasn't the final episode, was it? It was the one before, because it was the snow storm came
I
after
think
that.
wasn't that the halfway?
I
Like before a break?
I think it was episode 15. I'm sure it is. We'll have to have a look at it because that might be
Yeah,
one to, like in another
yeah.
podcast.
See,
But
the Pikes didn't do me that much because I saw it coming. I don't know
mm,
why, but I just saw it coming. And what more was like to me was more like a moment that I think like people would be sad about. I wasn't because well, after Simon's death, I became emotionless, seriously. But was the moment when you see it happen, when you have that flashback, and
yeah,
DJ, played by Matt Magnum, is
yeah,
trying to fight his way through it, and when everything went in slow motion, and you see how they die, I
yeah,
think that to me was more of an emotional bit than
yeah.
seeing the actual Pikes.
Yeah, it was more emotional. I agree for that reason. It was the shock factor of the Pikes.
The way how it happened, how they bombed it, and how they fought one
Yeah,
by one. Even the old lady Tammy, I think she was called.
yeah,
Um, how they fought, and well, you obviously already knew they were dead because you just saw the Pikes, but how
yeah,
they fought for
yeah,
that last moment, and then thinking they got all decapitated. Um,
yeah.
I think that was more of an emotional moment at that point than the Pikes itself. But
And this kind of question just comes to my mind with Simon then, because obviously his death in this episode, if he was at the point where he was in that barn where they were fighting back against whisperers and the Pike moment's going to come. So Simon was going to be a head on the spike rather than a walker on the fence, you know. Do you think it's a silly question, really, because it is probably a yes that he would have fought, because he would have, wouldn't he? He would have, because he did it with Negan.
Yes, he would have fought so hard. And, you know, again, that's from my point of view. When you see the power behind the punch of Simon, when you saw it with Negan, I think he could have got out, honestly. I think he could have gotten out that barn.
Yeah.
I really think he could have. And I don't even think he would have been in a position to be in that barn. I think he wouldn't even let himself be in a position. I think he would have had a position a little bit higher up and not be in that situation, because I don't see Simon as a, because yeah, okay, yeah, he was driving the van and picking up supplies, but Simon was not a character that would go on supply runs. He was more of a stationary, because he had his own outpost. Simon had his own outpost. The satellite outpost where all these men got killed was Simon's outpost, because he got resigned to that outpost. So and when they all got killed, Simon wasn't there because he was going back and forward from sanctuary to outpost, sanctuary outpost. So he was at sanctuary at a right moment, because he would have otherwise been in the outpost. That was his outpost. So he had more like, he already had like kind of a leader role, because he had his own outpost, right? So he would have been in a position to do something like that. He wouldn't be out and about like all the others were. He would have been busy with something else, like making a plan of killing some community or something. Like he wouldn't be in that situation. I don't think he would.
And just going back to touch on the dynamic between him and Dwight in this episode, if there was a future episode and they were both in it, regardless of the scene, but, you know, they were being attacked, do you think Simon would have sacrificed himself to save Dwight?
Absolutely not.
No.
No, because he is that character that he would sacrifice others for his own sake. He would.
Yeah.
Would he fight next to Dwight? Yes. Would he try to save Dwight? No, absolutely not.
No, he just, whatever happened.
I think he rather would throw him in front of a horde of walkers and get out himself. Yeah. Is that cowardly? No, I think it's smart. But I do legit believe that Simon thought Dwight was his best friend, and that Simon thought he could trust him, and that they actually had this brotherly bond. I believe Simon thought that, and because again, the moment when he's trying to pound at Dwight, in the moment that he actually gets discovered with the plan, that they grab him, he felt betrayed. You could see that, and I legit believe that was a heartbreaking moment for him, that he was like, you betrayed me and I trusted you. I thought you were my brother. I do believe they had that kind of dynamic, like, you know, a brotherly thing between them. I highly believe that Simon thought that, and that's the way that's how he reacted that aggressively when he found out he was betrayed, because he didn't see that one coming. He thought Dwight was with him, and he believed him. He believed Dwight. So I think at that moment he was really mad. He found out he was betrayed. Like I like I said, I thought that I really think that he thought that they were close.
Yeah, and that moment when Dwight has been promoted to the number 2, and they go into the room and obviously finds out that Negan knew all along about the betrayal. In that moment, do you wonder if it's going through Dwight's mind of, shit, I should have actually
absolutely
stuck with Simon on this one?
Yes, I do, because he's kind of, there's like a split second that you can see that Dwight actually has this fear over him and thinks to himself like, shit, this is it for me. Like he just killed Simon. I'm next. I do believe at that point he thought like, shit, I made the wrong choice.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
realization. Yeah, definitely. So that's really interesting. Really, really interesting. And
He
it's
would
been
have been
great.
Simon's right hand man. Simon would have given him a really good position.
Yeah, he would
So
have. Yeah,
he would have.
yeah. So
He
it's
would have
very,
let them rule together. He wouldn't have done it alone. He would have taken Dwight in and do
yeah,
it together. He would have, because there's like, we're into this together. He was all about that togetherness, wasn't he? My boy, we're
my
in
boy.
this together. He
Mm,
believed in himself and he believed in Dwight, and then,
yeah.
well, backstabbing the rat, Dwight.
I know. And certainly when he was saying to him, you need to remember what Negan is, has done to you. And I know, yeah, he was trying to help Rick, you know, in a way for that reason, because of what Negan had done to him. But then, yeah, Simon was right there, almost
He
offering.
was sincere. The look in his
Yeah,
face, it was so soft. It was with feelings. He had emotions. He was like,
yeah,
but don't you remember? Like, he was like, literally, like, he wasn't trying to sell it. He was like, look what happened to you. Like, dude, open your eyes. He
yeah, yeah,
wasn't mad. He wasn't emotionless. He was like, your life got destroyed by this man. You need to step up. He was, just again, Steven's face, how he sells it. I can't. I can't get over it.
no, he's brilliant. He is brilliant. And certainly at the convention and working alongside him in that team was just amazing experience. And actually, next to us in the next kind of booth, if you like,
That was
was Austin.
why
Yeah,
Austin, and on the other side it was Jadis, I believe. Pollyanna. Pollyanna was like in there, and then you had Steven, and then you had
that's
Austin.
right. Yeah, yeah,
I know
yeah.
exactly the setup.
And Jeffrey was, as Negan, was
He was,
opposite the
yeah,
corner.
because Steven was here, and then like right there in the corner,
Yeah,
all with fenced off, you could
yeah,
catch a glimpse of Jeffrey.
yeah. Good. Yeah, it was very, very busy, as you can imagine.
It
We know.
was, man, I've
Yeah,
never seen so many people in one building
yeah, so many
before. It
people.
was insane.
Yeah. But so many people with such a love of the program. And, that was another reason why talking about The Walking Dead on these podcasts, I want to be covering other shows as well. But The Walking Dead, you think, well, people are interested. They want to kind of talk about it. They appreciate it. They appreciate
Yeah.
the actors. So it's really good to have this space to, discuss and go back actually and revisit the episodes and
Yeah.
see the again.
And especially when you also met them in person, it's like it's you can see like the real life version of how
Yeah.
they are, and then and it's like it's so weird. And I remember that weekend when I met him. Actually, the first time that I met him was at that Walker's Talk in 2018 in London,
Mm.
and I will never forget it either because of Steve. And I missed my plane on Sunday, and I got stuck on an air on an air. I got stuck on the airport, and I
Oh,
had no hotel room, nothing. My battery of my phone was dead. I had nowhere to go. And people were expecting me home, and I couldn't get home. It's because Stephen got really, really busy on a Sunday, didn't he? He
yeah.
got really insanely busy. He was a big ass row. So he turned up late on his photo ops. And I was already stressing because I had to get out by 5:15. I had to leave the convention.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when he came into the photo booth, and all the volunteers already helped me and they put me in front of the row because I had to leave. I had the plane to catch, and I missed my plane because I did not want to miss my photo with Steven. So that's how much
Yeah.
I am dedicated to Steven. I miss an airplane for him and get stuck in London on an airport that's completely shut down in the evening and nowhere to stay.
That's dedication. But it was running a bit behind because it was so
Yes.
big. So that definitely that was the knock-on effect. And unfortunately you had that experience. So hopefully you think it was worth it because you did get
It was
to
absolutely worth it because look at me now. Like, see if I can like show it, but
yeah.
I actually have Steven monumented on my
Wow.
body. Um, so yeah, no, it was it was absolutely worth it. It's a moment I will never forget, especially because my husband deleted my selfie and everything that came from that. And and then and still seeing him, like last time I saw him was first weekend of March this year. It's the last time I've seen him. Last time I spoke to him is 2 months ago because he did a reading, and I actually had a couple of words with him. And so, yeah, it's still there. I'm still seeing him. I'm still kind of talking to him. And I just, was as soon as COVID is over and conventions are back on, I hope he's coming back to Europe because I will be definitely there.
Hope so. Yeah, that would be really good. And I would love to be able to, see him again, because it was great that weekend, just working in his team, full of energy, crazy, but in a really positive way.
Absolutely.
And so professional and so giving to people, but, taking the time with people as well. And why the queues were so big.
Vibrant soul, isn't he? He's
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To the viewers as well, if you ever get a chance to meet Stephen, I'll go grab it because you will not regret it at all. It's like, it's going to be a moment you will never forget. So if you have a chance to meet him, go see him. Look at me making a whole commercial for Stephen here right now.
I would second it, because all of them are great, but obviously, yes, today we're kind of talking about Simon's character and what happened, and Stephen is definitely a very, very, kind of,
down to earth person.
Yeah, very kind-hearted, generous individual, and such a professional at his job, and his acting skills are just sublime. So, and I think, like you say, when you meet him and then you recognize the work he does on screen in the different roles that he's been in,
he mostly plays a meanie. And to everybody, also the viewers, if you want to see more of Stephen's work, then go to Netflix and watch Snowpiercer, because now currently Stephen is playing Pike in Snowpiercer, who is back on the 26th of January on Netflix. Give it a go because he is killing it again, guys. Like, really.
And that's really good, like, recommendation.
It is. I'm making commercials today. I'm paid for this.
You are, and you mentioned it to me, and it's one that I need to add to my list because I do respect his work as an actor. So you kind of know you watch with him in it, it's going to be good. So definitely really good. So I've really enjoyed talking again with you about The Walking Dead, and obviously this episode, I know it's a bit emotional at times, but obviously it's close to your heart as well. Yes. And you have lots of things to share, so that's been really great that you've done that. So really grateful, and we want to keep the discussion going, and so I'd really appreciate anyone watching, subscribe to the channel, show your support in any way you can, give a comment, click on the notification bell, and then you'll know when the other podcasts come out. And for next time, because I know we were talking about villains, and certainly this episode brought up the whole question of villains. Yes. So we'd said before, hadn't we, it might be good to delve into villains and the ones that are perceived as villains. Are they really villains, to kind of go there? So if any of you watching have got any comments on villains or your favorite villain, or anything like that you want to put in the comments, then that would be great. If
you think Simon was a villain or not, leave it in the comments and let me know. I want to know your opinions on, was he evil or was he not, and tell me why, because then maybe in the next episode we can actually pull some of your comments up and discuss them. So please leave those comments. Tell us who you think is a villain or should have been a villain, or who you think is a villain but you're not sure. Just leave the comments, and we will definitely look into them. And if you have questions or you're not sure, leave them in the comment, and we will try to answer as many questions as we can in the further episode of this podcast.
Absolutely. And to carry on with a bit of interaction with the audience watching, another thing that I'll put out on social media as well is getting that feel of the opening episodes of each of the series and the final episodes of each of the series, and kind of the favorite ones. So almost like a bit of a vote, really. And we'll see what comes out as the top one, and then maybe we can discuss that on a future podcast.
Absolutely. And even the most saddest death, like, let's make a poll about whose death was uncalled for or the saddest, or I'd like to know, and we can look into the different ways how our beloved characters died. Was it worthy? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it, just let us know.
Exactly. Yeah, that'd be really good. And spread the word, about the podcast. We've only just started it talking about The Walking Dead, obviously. But I'm really interested to get into more of it and going back through it. And I know you feel the same.
Yes.
We delve deeper, don't we? We can see things that we've maybe not seen before.
It's the question that I asked you before. Do you look with different eyes to Simon now as that you did before?
Yeah, and I do. I will say that I do, because I was watching it thinking I kind of know where we're at the point of now in the Walking Dead whole series. And you do look at it and you kind of question the behaviors and the motives and the dynamics of the characters. And certainly with Dwight, I've just found him interesting as well. And I know he's in the fear of the Walking Dead, isn't he?
Yes, yes, he still is.
Yeah, and that's something that I do want to start watching, actually. Because
I have to, because there's something really big that just happened around Dwight in fear.
There is,
so...
yeah. Saw that, yeah, and it made me think I definitely want to watch it.
Yeah, we need to.
We need to, yeah. So once again, thanks for being a part of this. And I will, just put out that kind of plea again. Anybody, if you could add your comments, spread the word. We really like to hear from you. That would be fabulous. So thank you once again, guys. And I will say, because it's still, well, in England, it's still Halloween. I've got another.
Over here it's not.
Here is it. So I can kind of say happy Halloween from here, and I hope everybody's had a safe one. And we've also had a full moon today as well, so on Halloween, so set the mood. But yeah, we'll be back again for another podcast. Thank you so much for taking part, Reina. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me again.
And we will see you all again soon. Thanks very much, guys.
Bye.
Bye.